the spark between us. A Callahan's of Elk Ridge romance. Written by Susanne. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 1. Ivy. And then we'll move the morning yoga to the garden terrace. The shrill blast of the fire alarm cuts through my carefully practiced presentation. 23 members of the Johnson family reunion freeze mid-bite, forks hovering over Declan's famous blueberry pancakes. Is this part of the morning activities? Mrs. Johnson asks hopefully, clutching her Mountain Laurel Lodge event itinerary. Before I can answer, the unmistakable sound of small running feet and triumphant giggling reaches me. Tommy Marshall, age 6 and clearly pleased with himself, darts past the dining room entrance. I did it, Mommy. I pulled the red thing just like a real firefighter. Perfect. Just perfect. Everything's fine. I project my voice over the alarm, channeling what Liam calls my cruise director charm. Please proceed calmly to the front lawn. This is only a precaution. I've done this drill before. Get the guests out first, then do a sweep of the common areas. But before I can start herding people toward the door, Declan bursts out of the kitchen, flour coating his apron and a wild look in his eyes. Ivy. The kitchen. Dec, I know about the alarm. Tommy got a little excited with. No, there's actual smoke. Nothing major, my brother adds quickly, seeing my expression. Just a towel too close to the stovetop. It's out now, but protocol is protocol, and the fire department is already on their way. The rumble of engines grows louder, and my stomach does that annoying little flip it always does when I know who's about to walk through our door. Sure enough, moments later, the Elk Ridge Fire Department's finest come charging in, led by none other than Maddox Archer. He fills the doorway like he always has, all broad shoulders and stern expression. His captain's behind him, along with 2 newer guys whose names I should probably remember, given how often they come by for Declan's famous apple pie. Situation? Maddox's deep voice carries across the room, and I resist the urge to roll my eyes at his serious tone. He knows darn well this place isn't burning down. 2-part situation, actually. I step forward, trying to ignore how his presence always seems to make the room smaller. Part 1. Curious 6-year-old with excellent reach. I gesture to Tommy, who's now hiding behind his mother's legs. Part 2. Small kitchen incident, already contained. We still need to check. The kitchen, I know. This time I do roll my eyes. Declan will show you. Though I'm pretty sure you remember the way from last month's great pancake disaster. The younger firefighters snicker, and even the captain's mouth twitches. But Maddox just gives me that look. The one that says he's not impressed by my attempt at humor. It's the same look he's been giving me since I was 16 and trying to tag along on his and Liam's camping trips. Something my oldest brother shut down immediately. Standard protocol. Requires a full sweep of the premises, yes. I cut him off again, probably enjoying his frustration more than I should. Like I said, Declan will show you to the kitchen. I'll handle the guests. He nods curtly and turns to his team, all business as he directs them to different areas of the lodge. I try not to notice how well he wears his uniform or the way his crew responds instantly to his quiet authority. Those are dangerous thoughts, especially when it comes to Maddox. Quite the excitement for a Tuesday morning, Captain Reynolds says, falling into step beside me as I head outside to check on the guests. Though I have to say, if we're going to get called out for false alarms, the lodge is my favorite spot. Your brother's coffee puts our station sludge to shame. Don't let Maddox hear you say that. He claims nothing beats his own special brew at the firehouse. Speaking of loyalty, heard about Sarah's wedding next weekend? Captain Reynolds keeps his voice casual, but there's a glint in his eye I don't trust. Hard not to. Between his mother's daily calls to the station and Sarah's constant texts about seating charts, I'm shocked Maddox hasn't fled to Canada. The captain chuckles. He's been a bear to work with lately. All this pressure about finding a date. He strokes his mustache thoughtfully. It'd sure make everyone's life easier if someone would volunteer to be his plus one. Someone who already knows the family. Someone who can handle his brooding. I almost trip over my own feet. Are you seriously trying to set me up as Maddox's wedding date? Oh, did I say that? His innocent tone isn't fooling anyone. I'm just thinking out loud about how nice it would be if Maddox showed up with someone he actually enjoys spending time with, instead of whatever match his mother has lined up this time. Before I can respond, Maddox emerges from the kitchen, his expression somehow even more serious than before. All clear. Just some minor smoke damage around the stove. What a relief, I say, but he's already turning away, speaking into his radio about incident reports and protocols. Speaking of which, Captain Reynolds raises his voice, drawing the attention of the other firefighters who are wrapping up their equipment check. I think I have a brilliant idea about how you can make up for this morning's excitement, Ivy. I don't like that tone. Or the way the younger firefighters are suddenly paying very close attention. The kitchen incident wasn't even my fault, I protest. No, but you did promise us cinnamon rolls last time we were here for the great pancake disaster. He winks at Tommy's mom, who's still hovering nearby. I'm thinking we could call it even if you'd do us all a huge favor and be Maddox's plus one to Sarah's wedding. The equipment Maddox is holding clatters against the truck. His shoulders go rigid, and I swear I can see a muscle ticking in his jaw from here. Cap, Maddox's warning tone only makes his captain's grin wider. What do you say, Ivy? Save this poor man from his mother's matchmaking attempts? The whole station's tired of hearing about it. It's true, one of the younger firefighters pipes up, Jones, I think his name is. He's been impossible to work with. Yesterday he spent 20 minutes reorganizing the equipment cabinet because his mom called about dress codes. I did not, Maddox starts, but another firefighter cuts him off. The day before that, it was table arrangements. He made us run drills twice, because Sarah texted about the seating chart. I can't help it. I burst out laughing. The mental image of Maddox stress cleaning equipment while dodging wedding calls is too perfect. Wow, Mad didn't realize wedding planning was such serious business. This isn't. He runs a hand through his hair, messing it up in that way that definitely doesn't make my stomach flip. We are not having this conversation. Why not? I lean against one of the lodge's porch pillars, enjoying his discomfort way too much. Afraid I'll cramp your style? That's not, he shoots his captain a look that would make most men flinch. This is completely unprofessional. You know what's unprofessional? Jones asks. Making the probie reorganize the first aid kits because your grandmother called for the third time about who you'll bring to this wedding. More laughter from the crew, and even Tommy's mom is hiding a smile behind her hand. Maddox looks like he's considering whether the station needs an extra round of equipment inventory checks. I should probably let him off the hook. After all, he's only ever seen me as Liam's annoying little sister, the kid who used to tag along on fishing trips and mess up their careful hiking plans. But something about the way he's avoiding looking at me makes me want to push just a little harder. Come on, Mad. I step closer, watching his shoulders tense. One wedding. I clean up nice, I know all the family stories, and I promise not to tell Sarah about the time you fell in the creek trying to prove you could catch fish with your bare hands. His head snaps up, those blue eyes finally meeting mine. You wouldn't. Try me. For a moment, something flashes across his face. Something that makes my pulse skip and my next breath catch. Then he looks away, and it's gone. Fine, he growls, turning back to his equipment. But only because it's better than dealing with my mother's pics. Such a charmer. I press a hand to my heart. Really, your enthusiasm is overwhelming. The crew laughs again, and Captain Reynolds claps Maddox on the shoulder. There, was that so hard? Now maybe we can get through a shift without wedding drama. I hate all of you, Maddox mutters, but there's less tension in his shoulders now. Text me the details, I call after him as they head to the truck. And wear something pretty. He doesn't turn around, but I catch his head shake and what might be the ghost of a smile. The rest of the crew gives me thumbs up as they climb in, and Captain Reynolds tips an imaginary hat. "Good luck," he stage whispers. "Try to have him back by midnight, or he turns into an even grumpier pumpkin." I watch them pull away, definitely not noticing how well Maddox fills out his turnout gear, or the way he moves with such easy confidence. This is just a favor for an old family friend. A chance to save him from his mother's matchmaking and maybe tease him a little in the process. The fact that my heart's still racing? That's just leftover adrenaline from the alarm. Definitely. "Miss Ivy?" Tommy tugs at my sleeve, breaking my thoughts. "Are the firefighters coming back? I want to see the truck again." I ruffle his hair, forcing myself to focus on the day ahead. "Not today, buddy. But maybe next time we'll arrange a proper visit. One that doesn't involve pulling any alarms. Promise?" "Promise." I turn back to the lodge, where 23 Johnsons are still waiting for their yoga class. Now, who's ready for some sun salutations?
Chapter 2. Maddox. I'm elbow deep in lasagna prep, my third batch since we got back from the lodge, when Jones clears his throat. "You know, at this rate, we'll be eating Italian for a month." He eyes the 2 pans already cooling on the counter and the mountain of grated cheese beside me. Not that anyone's complaining, but usually you only stress cook like this when you're prepping for an exam. I'm not stress cooking. I layer another sheet of pasta, focusing on getting the edges perfectly straight. The freezer meals needed restocking. Right. He leans against the station kitchen counter, arms crossed. Like those 3 batches of cinnamon rolls this morning were standard breakfast prep. And the chicken parmesan yesterday was just because. The probie mentioned he likes Italian. I spread ricotta with maybe more force than necessary. The probie also likes breathing, which might be difficult under all this food. Besides, aren't you supposed to be prepping for that wedding this weekend? You know, the one you finally found a date for? The spoon clatters against the pan. It's not like that. Finally getting a real date, Archer? Martinez strolls in, making a beeline for the cooling lasagna. Miracles do happen. I swat his hand away from the food. It's not a date. It's a favor. To get my mother off my back. And all the single women in Elk Ridge, Captain Reynolds' voice makes me jump. He's leaning in the doorway, mustache twitching with poorly hidden amusement. "You just happen to agree to take Ivy Callahan? After weeks of dodging every other suggestion? That was your idea," I point out, aggressive grating another block of mozzarella. "Your terrible, inappropriate idea." "Terrible?" Johnson pipes up from behind the captain. "Did you see the way she—" "Don't." I brandish my cheese grater like a weapon. "Don't finish that sentence." "If it's so terrible," Captain Reynolds says, that knowing look still on his face, "why do you look like you walked into a burning building without your gear?" The cheese grater still's in my hand. Because he's right. My heart's racing like I'm about to make entry into a structure fire. Which is ridiculous. This is just Ivy. Ivy, who used to put frogs in my boots during camping trips. Ivy, who knows exactly how to push my buttons. Ivy, who grew up into someone so capable and confident that sometimes I forget to breathe when she. Earth to Maddox. Jones waves his hand in front of my face. "Your sauce is bubbling over." "Shoot." I grab for the pot, barely registering the burn of the hot handle through my calluses. "You know," Captain Reynolds says carefully, stealing a piece of garlic bread from the cooling rack, "there's nothing wrong with admitting you might actually want to go to this wedding with her." "I don't." The words come out too fast, too defensive. "She's Liam's sister." And? And she's young? "No, she's 28. Off limits?" That sounds worse. "She's Ivy. Very observant." Martinez slow claps. "No wonder they made you captain of the B shift." I turn back to my lasagna, layering meat sauce with mechanical precision. This is fine. This is nothing more than a wedding. One weekend of Ivy pretending to be my date, then everything goes back to normal. Back to carefully maintained distance and definitely not noticing how her eyes light up when she laughs or how she still bites her lip when she's planning something that'll drive me crazy. What Martinez means, Captain Reynolds cuts in, is that maybe it's time to stop using she's Ivy as an excuse not to deal with whatever's been brewing between you two since she moved back from college. Nothing's brewing. But even I can hear the lie as I violently sprinkle more cheese. Sure. Jones starts pulling plates down for the crew. That's why you've been wearing a path in the station floor ever since she took over guest services at the lodge. And why you suddenly remembered we needed to do safety checks there twice as often as usual. Standard protocol. Is once a quarter, Johnson finishes. Not every time she posts a new Instagram story about lodge events. I slam the oven door with more force than necessary, setting the timer for 45 minutes. Don't you all have work to do? This is work. Martinez grins, already cutting into one of the cooled lasagnas. Preventing our fearless leader from self-destructing over a wedding date. It's not. The station alarm cuts through whatever weak protest I was about to make. Saved by the bell. Finally, something I know how to handle. Structure fire on Oak Street, dispatch announces. Smoke reported from the second floor. We move as one unit, conversation forgotten as we head for our gear. This is what I'm good at. Clear protocols, defined risks, no complicated feelings about a woman who's always been off limits. The afternoon sun hits Mountain Laurel Lodge at just the right angle to make the windows gleam like fire. The irony isn't lost on me. I sit in my truck for a moment, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel. After 25 years of friendship, you'd think talking to Liam would be easier. But how exactly do you tell your best friend since kindergarten that you're taking his baby sister on a date? The main entrance is propped open, letting in the mountain breeze. Inside, the lobby is quiet. A few guests lounge by the fireplace, and I catch the scent of whatever Declan's cooking up for dinner service. Mad? Liam looks up from the front desk, using the nickname that stuck since we were 5. Twice in one day. Don't tell me Tommy found another alarm to pull. No, I'm not here on business. I shove my hands in my pockets. Got a minute? For you? Always. He studies my face for a moment, then calls out, Deck. I'm taking 5. We end up on the back patio, the same spot where we used to plot summer adventures and share contraband candy bars. Liam leans against the railing, waiting. He's always been good at letting silence do the work for him. It's a trick he learned from his dad, and even after all these years, it still works. So, I finally manage. About Sarah's wedding this weekend. Yeah? I'm taking Ivy. For a long moment, Liam just stares at me. Then, slowly, one eyebrow rises in that expression I've seen 1,000 times. Usually right before he calls me out on my nonsense. As your date? Not exactly. It's more like. I run a hand through my hair, probably making it worse. My mother keeps calling about +1s, and Captain Reynolds suggested, and Ivy offered to help. So, a fake date. Liam's smirk fades into something more serious. To get your mom off your back. Yes. Exactly. Relief floods through me. A favor between friends. Liam straightens, his expression hardening slightly. Look, Mad. I know you need this, but Ivy's not just another girl you can. I would never. Let me finish. His tone carries the same protective edge I've heard him use with Ivy's past boyfriends. She puts her whole heart into everything. Make sure she knows this isn't real. That it can't be real. The words hit harder than they should. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're my best friend, and she's my baby sister. He meets my eyes steadily. And some lines are better left uncrossed. I can't have either of you getting hurt because you forgot this is just pretend. Isn't that the truth? I whirl around at Ivy's voice, my chest tight with something that feels too much like guilt. She's standing in the doorway, arms crossed, her smile a little too bright to be real. How long have you been standing there? I manage. Long enough to hear my big brother doing his protective routine. She steps onto the patio, but there's a new distance in her stance. Don't worry, Lee. I know exactly what this is. Which reminds me, she turns to me, all business. We should probably set some ground rules. Rules? She hops up on the wide stone railing, pointedly ignoring Liam's presence now. First, no unnecessary touching. Hand-holding at the wedding is fine, but let's not oversell it. We wouldn't want anyone getting the wrong idea. The edge in her voice makes me wince. Agreed. Second, this is just for the wedding. We officially break up right after. The last thing we need is town gossip about Liam's best friend and his baby sister. She emphasizes the words, and I catch Liam shifting uncomfortably. Obviously. And most importantly, she leans forward, her eyes challenging. No kissing. But that won't be a problem, right? Since some lines are better left uncrossed. Right. The word tastes bitter. Perfect. She slides off the railing, all traces of her usual playful smirk gone. Then we're all set. I'll text you about dress colors. Wouldn't want to clash in the photos your mom's so worried about. I watch her walk away, the stiff set of her shoulders making my chest ache. When did that gap-toothed kid who used to follow us fishing turn into someone who could make me feel like I've lost something I never had?
Chapter 3. Ivy. The coffee loft has reclaimed its spot as the heart of Elk Ridge. The warm scent of fresh-baked pastries mingles with coffee, and early afternoon sunlight streams through windows decorated with local artwork. The community board is covered with flyers for upcoming events, and the wishing wall that Catherine hung up is filled with hopes and dreams. When I texted Maddox about meeting for coffee, I picked this spot deliberately. After all, if we're going to convince his family we're dating at the wedding, we might as well get comfortable being seen together. The usual? Annie asks as I approach the counter, her apron dusted with cinnamon. My latte and 2 scones, actually. I try to sound casual. Maddox is joining me. Her eyebrows shoot up. Before she can comment, the bell above the door chimes. I turn to see Maddox filling the doorway, and my breath catches. He's traded his usual uniform or workout clothes for dark jeans and a blue button-down that makes his eyes impossibly brighter. His hair's slightly damp, like he actually took time to shower after his shift. Well, Annie murmurs, already starting on our drink. This is new. I'm about to defend myself when I notice the way Maddox moves through the coffee shop, looking more uncertain than I've ever seen him. He usually barrels through life with the same confidence he shows at fire scenes, but now he's scanning the room like he's walking into unknown territory. You clean up nice, Archer, Annie calls out as Maddox makes his way to the counter. Every head in the coffee loft seems to turn, and I catch Mrs. Peterson lowering her book for a better look. Black coffee? Thanks. His ears redden slightly as he notices the attention. He hesitates at the counter, and I catch Annie trying to hide her surprise when he says, hazelnut macchiato, if you don't mind. Getting fancy today? Annie glances between us, a smile tugging at her lips. Want me to bring these to your table? That would be great. I gesture to my favorite window seat, pretending my stomach doesn't flip when Maddox follows. The leather cushions are still new enough to smell fresh, part of Catherine's mission to restore the coffee loft to its former glory while making it even better. So, what's the plan? He says as we slide into the booth. His knee brushes mine under the table. This was your idea. Well, if we're going to convince your family at the wedding. I let the sentence hang as Annie approaches with our drinks, my caramel latte and his hazelnut macchiato. Since when do you drink anything but black coffee? I ask once Annie's out of earshot. A faint flush creeps up his neck. Sometimes I like something different. When I'm not grabbing and going. The big, tough firefighter has a sweet tooth? I can't help teasing him. Wait until your crew hears about this. They won't, he says, but there's a hint of a smile playing at his lips. Because you're not going to tell them. And what makes you so sure about that? Because I know where all your embarrassing childhood photos are hidden at the lodge. Our eyes meet across the table, and suddenly we're both laughing. It's his real laugh. Not the controlled chuckle he usually allows himself. The sound does something to my chest that I refuse to analyze. Thankfully, Annie arrives with our drinks. Speaking of secrets, he says, after she leaves. Are we sure this is a good idea? What, coffee? All of it. He toys with his mug, not quite meeting my eyes. After what Liam said. Liam's not in charge of my life. The words come out sharper than intended. Or yours. I know, but nothing. I reach for a scone, needing something to do with my hands. This is just coffee, Mad. He looks up then, and for a moment, I catch something in his eyes that makes my breath catch. He leans in, close enough that I can smell his soap and coffee, and something uniquely him. Ivy. The bell above the door chimes, and Liam's familiar voice carries across the coffee shop. Mad? Since when do you drink anything but? He stops short when he sees how close we're sitting, his protective big brother expression sliding into place. We both jump, and Maddox straightens so fast he nearly knocks over his macchiato. I catch his hand before it tips, and the brief contact sends sparks up my arm. Liam, I say quickly, low enough that only they can hear. This is part of the plan, remember? We need people to believe this. I give him a look that clearly says back off. He holds my gaze for a moment, then lets out a slow breath. Right. Well, don't let me interrupt your coffee date. The pause is slight, but I catch the way Maddox's shoulders tense. I'm grabbing something for Declan. As Liam makes his way to the counter, that familiar wall slides back into place behind Maddox's eyes. Actually, I should probably stay. The word slips out before I can stop it. At least try the scones. We need to figure out our story anyway. His mouth quirks up at one corner, but the easy warmth from earlier has faded. Trying to fatten me up? Looking out for your caffeine to pastry ratio. I push the plate toward him. Can't have Elk Ridge's finest running on empty. He takes a bite of scone, watching as I add another packet of sugar to my latte. Still drowning perfectly good coffee in sugar, I see. Says the man drinking a hazelnut macchiato. At least I don't need an extra shot and 3 sugars when I'm stressed. He says it casually, then freezes when he realizes what he's revealed. The warmth in my chest spreads. You notice how I take my coffee? I notice a lot of things. His voice is soft, dangerous. Then he clears his throat. But you're right. We should probably figure out our story. My mom's already asking questions. Right. I wrap my hands around my mug, grounding myself. How long have we been dating? Not too long, he says quickly. Otherwise, people will wonder why we kept it secret. 3 weeks? I suggest. That's enough time to be bringing me to a wedding, but new enough that we might have wanted to keep it quiet at first. He nods, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. And it explains why Liam's just finding out. His eyes flick briefly to where my brother is still waiting for his order, deliberately not looking our way. We could say it started at the spring festival. The idea comes to me suddenly. You were working the fire department's booth, and I was helping coordinate the lodge's displays. And I finally got the courage to ask you to dinner. His mouth quirks up. Not bad. It's even partly true. I did notice you there. Something warm flutters in my chest. You did? You were wearing that blue dress, he says softly, then seems to catch himself. Anyway. What about dates? My mom will definitely ask. Well, there's the festival and dinner. Maybe a few hikes? You could have helped me scout new trails for the lodge's guided tours. Dinner at Antonio's, he adds. It's quiet enough that we could have gone without running into the whole town. I raise an eyebrow. You've put some thought into this. That flush creeps back up his neck. Being thorough. What about why we kept it quiet? Simple. We wanted to see if it was real, before dealing with everyone's opinions. I try not to think about how true that feels. Between your mom's matchmaking and Liam's protectiveness. And now? Now we're sure enough to go public. The words come out steadier than I feel. Starting with Sarah's wedding. He studies me for a long moment, and I fight the urge to squirm under his gaze. Think anyone will buy it? They already are. I nod subtly toward Mrs. Peterson's table, where the entire book club is failing spectacularly at pretending not to watch us. Besides, all we have to do is act like this. Like what? Like we're comfortable together. Like we're having coffee and talking and... I trail off as I realize how close we've leaned toward each other over the table. I catch Liam watching us from the counter, his expression unreadable. But for once, I don't care what my big brother thinks. Because the way Maddox is looking at me right now makes me wonder if maybe we're not pretending as much as we think. The morning crowd has thinned by the time we step outside, but my head is still spinning. Maybe it's the extra shot in my latte, or maybe it's the way Maddox keeps stealing glances at me when he thinks I'm not looking. The same way he used to when we were teenagers, and I thought every one of those looks meant something. Turns out some crushes don't fade as much as you pretend they do. So, he says, falling into step beside me. Should we talk about the wedding? Sarah sent me about 50 texts about the schedule. That bad? He pulls out his phone, his arm brushing mine as he scrolls through messages. The contact sends a wave of warmth through me that has nothing to do with the morning sun. Let's see. Rehearsal dinner Friday night. Then Saturday morning is some sort of breakfast thing for the wedding party. Which technically includes me now. The thought hits suddenly. As your plus one? Yeah. He rubs the back of his neck. Sarah's kind of insisting. Said all dates are welcome, especially since you're... He trails off. Since I'm what? Since you're family. Sort of. I mean, with Liam and everything. Right. Because I'm Liam's little sister. Not because I'm anything else to him. Then there's the ceremony at 4, he continues quickly. Reception after. Dancing, dinner, the whole thing. Sarah's going all out. Sounds like a lot of time to spend pretending. The words slip out before I can stop them. He looks at me sharply. We don't have to, I mean, if you're having second thoughts. No. No. I force a laugh. I hope you're ready to convince your entire family we're dating. Your mom's pretty perceptive. Tell me about it. He sighs. She's asking if we're sharing a room at the resort where the wedding's being held. My step falters. Are we? I told her we're taking things slow. His ears redden. Is that okay? Perfect. My voice only squeaks a little. Very believable. Well, isn't this a sight for sore eyes? Mary from the flower shop calls out as she waters the hanging baskets outside her store. I was wondering when you two would finally figure it out. I feel Maddox stiffen beside me, his easy smile freezing in place. Before he can say anything that might blow our cover, I slip my hand through his arm like it belongs there. His muscle tenses under my touch, then relaxes, and suddenly I'm very aware of every point of contact between us. Just walking through town, I say, amazed at how steady my voice sounds when my pulse is doing gymnastics. Mary's knowing smile only grows wider. Sure, honey. That's why Maddox is wearing his good shirt and you're blushing like a summer rose. You know, I remember when you used to come into my shop and... We should get going. I cut her off before she can finish that particular story about teenage me buying flowers for the Valentine's dance. Lots of planning to do. Of course, of course. Mary winks at us. Don't let me keep you two lovebirds. We make it halfway down the block before Maddox clears his throat. You're good at that. At what? Making it seem real. Something in my chest twists. That's the point, isn't it? Yes, but. He stops walking, turning to face me. We're still close enough that I have to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You really think we can pull this off? 2 days of pretending to be together? My voice comes out softer than intended. We've known each other forever, Mad. We just have to act natural. Natural. He huffs a laugh. Right. Like I naturally know your coffee order and you naturally remember my favorite hiking trails and we naturally fit together like, he cuts himself off, that wall sliding back into place. Like what? Nothing. He starts walking again, but slower now. There's a lot that could go wrong. Like me remembering how it felt when you taught me to swim. Like the way you still smell like summer and pine trees. Like how I'm starting to think this isn't pretend at all. We'll be fine, I say instead. Follow my lead and we'll get through this. About that. He stops at my car, shifting his weight. The reception. There'll be dancing. My heart skips. So, maybe we should practice that too. You know, before the wedding. To make it look natural? Yes. He's standing close enough now that I can see the flecks of gray in his eyes, the way his throat moves when he swallows. If I took one step forward. Well. Liam's voice carries from the coffee loft's entrance. Don't let me interrupt. Maddox steps back so fast he nearly trips over the curb. We were. Planning, I say firmly, shooting Liam a warning look. For the wedding. Right. Liam's expression says he's not buying it. The fake date. I watch Maddox's shoulders tense, and suddenly I want to shake my brother. Want to tell him that not everything needs his protective oversight. See you around, Maddox says stiffly. Text me about practice, he adds softer, so only I can hear. I nod, not trusting my voice. He reaches around me to open my car door, and I catch a whiff of his soap mixed with coffee. Our fingers brush as I take the handle from him, and I tell myself the spark I feel is just static electricity. Mountain air can do that. Drive safe, he murmurs. I watch him walk to his truck in my rearview mirror, trying to slow my racing heart. This is pretend. A favor for a friend. Just 2 days of fake dating to get his mother off his back. But as I pull away from the coffee loft, Mary's words echo in my head. When you two would finally figure it out. The problem is, I'm starting to think I already have. This isn't a teenage crush anymore. This is something real. Something that could break more than just my heart if I'm not careful.
Chapter 4. Maddox. My truck's thermometer reads 92 degrees, but Ivy hasn't complained once during the half-hour drive to River Pines Resort. She's just hummed along to the radio, occasionally pointing out interesting landmarks or telling stories about guests at Mountain Laurel. It feels too natural. Like we've done this 100 times before. Is that it? She leans forward as we round a bend, and I try not to notice how the movement brings her closer to me. The resort buildings rise before us, all timber and stone against the backdrop of pine-covered mountains. Yep. Sarah's going all out. It's beautiful. There's genuine wonder in her voice. Reminds me a little of home. Home. The word hits differently when she says it, making me think of summer evenings at Mountain Laurel Lodge, of Ivy's laugh echoing across the lawn, of everything I've spent years pretending not to want. I pull into a spot near the entrance, killing the engine. Ready for this? Are you? She turns those hazel eyes on me, and for a moment, I forget how to breathe. Your mom's been texting me all morning. She what? Maddox. My mother's voice carries across the parking lot before Ivy can elaborate. And Ivy! Oh, you're here. I barely have time to get out of the truck before Mom engulfs Ivy in a hug. It's so wonderful to finally meet you properly. I mean, I've known you forever of course, but this is different. Mom, I start, but Ivy just laughs and hugs her back. It's great to see you too, Mrs. Archer. Oh, please. Call me Ellen. We're practically family now that you and Maddox are finally here. My grandmother's voice cuts through Mom's enthusiasm as she makes her way down the lodge steps. I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost. Hi, Gram. I moved to help her down the last step, but she waves me off, making a beeline for Ivy instead. Look at you, she says, taking Ivy's hands in hers. All grown up and beautiful. I always told Maddox he should. Gram. My voice comes out strangled. Maybe we should get checked in? Of course, of course. But she grabs my arm as Ivy and Mom head inside, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't screw this up, boy. It's not, we're just. I've watched you moon over that girl since you were 16. Her eyes, sharp as ever at 82, pin me in place. Don't think I haven't noticed. I never. You did. You do. She pats my cheek. And now she's here, looking at you like you hang the moon, and you're still trying to convince yourself it doesn't mean anything. Inside, Ivy's charm is already working its magic. She's listening intently to Mom's story about Sarah's dress disaster, asking all the right questions about the ceremony, complimenting the flower arrangements. She belongs here, in this scene, in this moment, in my family. The thought terrifies me. Your young lady is delightful, Graham says as we watch Mom drag Ivy off to meet more relatives. Exactly the kind of woman you should marry. I choke on air. Marry? Smart, capable, knows how to handle your stubborn self. She counts off on her fingers. Plus, she's got good genes. Have you seen how well Edie Callahan has aged? Graham, we just started dating. The lie feels heavy on my tongue. But you've loved her for years. She says it so matter-of-factly that my chest aches. Anyone with eyes can see that. Before I can protest, Ivy appears at my side. Your mom wants us to see our rooms. Her hand slips into mine like it belongs there. Everything okay? Fine. My voice cracks. You've got a good one there, Graham tells me, but her eyes are on Ivy. Hold on to her. For one ridiculous second, I let myself imagine it. Ivy in white, walking down an aisle. Ivy in my kitchen, stealing sips of my coffee. Ivy in my life, not just for a weekend, but forever. Coming? Ivy tugs at my hand, and reality crashes back. This isn't real. No matter how well she fits into my family, no matter how right her hand feels in mine, no matter how many knowing looks Graham gives me. This is just pretend. But as I follow Ivy up the stairs, watching her charm yet another relative with that easy smile, I'm starting to think my heart didn't get the memo. The rehearsal dinner is winding down, but no one seems eager to leave. Someone's hooked up a playlist to the lodge's sound system, and couples are naturally gravitating to the makeshift dance floor as a slow song starts to play. Ivy catches my eye from across the room, and I know she's thinking about our practice session at Mountain Laurel Lodge. How she insisted we needed to look natural on the dance floor. How we spent an hour in the empty great room after closing, her patient instructions mixing with laughter every time I stepped on her feet. She makes her way over to me now, that same amused look in her eyes. Want to see if our practice paid off? I should say no. Should make some excuse about helping clean up. Should do anything except hold out my hand and let her lead me to the dance floor. But when she steps into my arms, it's as natural as breathing. Her hand finds mine while the other rests on my shoulder, exactly like we practiced. Except this time there's no stumbling, no counting steps under our breath, no gentle teasing about my lack of rhythm. Look at that, she murmurs. You learned something. I had a good teacher. She looks up at me through her lashes. You mean you actually listened to someone for once? Don't tell anyone. My hand tightens slightly on her waist. I have a reputation to maintain. Her laugh is soft, private. Your secret's safe with me. She fits in my arms even better than she did during practice, when we were both too aware of getting the steps right. Here, with the lights dim and the music soft, we just move together like we've been doing this for years. Your grandmother keeps smiling at us, Ivy whispers, her breath warm against my neck. She's not the only one. I turn us slightly so she can see my mother not so subtly taking pictures with her phone. I think Mom's already planning the wedding. The words slip out before I can stop them, but Ivy just laughs. Well, we did practice in front of the lodge's ceremony arch. Maybe she saw us. I remember that moment. Ivy insisted we needed to know how to dance in closer quarters, how she felt in my arms under the twinkle lights Declan forgot to take down. How for a moment, I let myself imagine. Maddox? Her thumb traces small circles on my shoulder, bringing me back to now. You disappeared on me for a second there. I was thinking about how much better you are at this than when you stepped on my toes 5 times in a row. That was not, I catch her teasing smile. 4 times. Maximum. She moves closer, probably because my aunt walks by with her camera out, but my breath catches anyway. The familiar scent of her shampoo mingles with something floral. Maybe her perfume. It's distracting in a way that makes me want to bury my face in her hair and breathe her in. Your cousin Amy invited us hiking tomorrow morning, she says, seemingly unaware of my internal struggle. Before all the wedding prep starts. You don't have to. I want to. She pulls back just enough to meet my eyes. Unless you don't want me to come? No, I swallow hard. That would be nice. Her smile could light up the whole room. Good. Because I already told her about the hidden waterfall trail you showed me that summer. Showed you? I raise an eyebrow. You mean the one you followed me to because you were convinced I was sneaking off to meet someone? I bite back a smile thinking back to my high school days. I didn't want you getting into trouble. You got poison ivy. Minor detail. Her nose scrunches up at the memory. Besides, you're the one who carried me back to the lodge. Couldn't exactly leave you there. My hero. The words are teasing, but something in her expression makes my chest tight. The song changes to something faster, but neither of us moves to break apart. If anything, Ivy settles more comfortably against me, like she's forgotten we're just practicing. Like this is real. And that's the problem. Because I want to keep her here. Want to dance with her all night, want to take her hiking in the morning, want to show her every hidden trail and secret waterfall. Want her, not just for this weekend, but for all the weekends after. We should probably take a break, she says softly. Before your mom's phone runs out of storage. Right. I force myself to let go of her hand, to step back, to remember that none of this is real. Thanks for the dance. Anytime. That teasing smile plays at her lips again. I mean, after all that practice, it would be a shame to waste it. I watch her walk away, already missing her warmth. Cousin Matt catches my eye from across the room and raises his glass in a silent toast, clearly thinking he's watching some epic love story unfold. He's not entirely wrong.
Chapter 5. Ivy. I've been to enough weddings at Mountain Laurel to know how they usually go. The happy couple, the toasts, the dancing, it all follows a familiar pattern. But nothing about tonight feels normal, because nothing about the way Maddox keeps looking at me feels like pretend. The reception is in full swing, the lodge's grand ballroom transformed by hundreds of twinkling lights. Sarah and Jack are lost in their own world on the dance floor, and the atmosphere is infectious. Everyone's laughing, dancing, celebrating. Including us. Your mom's watching again, I murmur to Maddox as he pulls out my chair. The gesture is so natural, like he's been doing it all his life. Mom's always watching. His hand brushes the small of my back as he takes his seat beside me. But Gram's the one you need to worry about. She's convinced we are perfect for each other. The word sends a flutter through my stomach that I desperately try to ignore. Well, we are putting on quite a show. Are we? His voice is low, meant just for me. Because sometimes I forget we're pretending. Before I can process that, his cousin Amy appears with champagne. You two are adorable together. I can't believe you kept this secret for so long. Well, you know, Mad. I lean into him slightly, playing my part. Always so private about everything. Not about you. Amy's grin widens. He wouldn't shut up about that hiking trail you two explored last month. Going on and on about how you spotted that rare bird species. Maddox stiffens beside me. I didn't. You did. She winks at me. Nearly talked our ears off about how you knew exactly what it was, because of all those nature guides you read. Heat creeps up my neck. I do read those guides. I have since I was a teenager, trying to impress my brother's best friend with random forest facts. I didn't think anyone noticed. Anyway, Amy continues, oblivious to my internal crisis, save me a dance later, cuz. As she disappears into the crowd, Maddox clears his throat. This is easier than I thought it would be. Oh? I raise an eyebrow, testing him. That's funny, because you look a little too comfortable with it. Instead of his usual quick comeback, he just holds my gaze. Something intense burns in those blue eyes, something that makes my breath catch and my heart race. Then someone calls his name, and the moment breaks. I should. He gestures vaguely toward his mother, who's waving him over. Go. I manage a smile. I need some air anyway. His hand squeezes mine briefly before he stands. The touch sends sparks up my arm, and I have to remind myself it's just for show. Just like the way he keeps his hand on my back when we walk. Just like how he leans in close when I talk, like everything I say matters. Just like how he remembers things about me that I didn't think anyone noticed. The evening air hits my face as I slip out onto the back patio, but it does nothing to cool the heat in my cheeks. Music and laughter spill out from the ballroom, but out here, under a canopy of stars, I can finally breathe. This is getting dangerous. Because it's one thing to fake date someone. It's another to realize that maybe you weren't pretending at all. That maybe every laugh, every touch, every shared look held more truth than fiction. Get it together, Ivy, I mutter to myself, gripping the patio railing. It's fake. A favor for an old friend. But the memory of Maddox's eyes when he looked at me, of his hand in mine, of every single moment that felt too real to be fake. The door opens behind me, and I know without turning who it is. Because of course he followed me. Of course he noticed I needed space. Of course he's here anyway, because that's what the real Maddox does, the one I've been trying so hard not to fall for. You okay? His voice is soft, careful. I'm good. Just needed some air. My heart beats a mile a minute. Avoiding the crowd? His voice carries across the patio as he steps closer. Avoiding you, I tease back, but my voice wavers just enough to betray me. Maddox moves to stand beside me at the railing, close enough that our shoulders brush. Below us, the valley stretches out in darkness, dotted with the twinkling lights of scattered mountain homes. The music from inside feels distant now, muted by the weight of everything unsaid between us. Some party, he says finally. I trace a pattern in the wood grain of the railing. Your mom seems happy. She's already asked if we're thinking about Mountain Laurel for our wedding. My laugh comes out shakier than intended. Of course she has. Silence falls again, but it's charged now, electric with possibility. A cool breeze rustles through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and something distinctly mountain. Something like home. Can I ask you something? The words slip out before I can stop them. Always. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. Why did you never consider me before? His jaw tightens, and for a moment, I think he won't answer. You're Liam's little sister. That's an excuse, not an answer. I turn to face him fully. Try again. Ivy. No, I want to know. Maybe it's the champagne, or the stars, or the way he's been looking at me all night, but I'm tired of dancing around this. Because sometimes, the way you look at me. He meets my eyes then, really looks at me, and something in the air shifts. How do I look at you? My breath catches as he takes a step closer. Like maybe you've been pretending to. For a lot longer than this weekend. His hand comes up to cup my cheek, and my heart stutters. What if I have been? Time stops when his lips meet mine. The world narrows to this moment. The warmth of his palm against my cheek. The faint trace of coffee and mint on his breath. The solid strength of him as he draws me closer. He kisses me like he's afraid I'll disappear, soft and searching, giving me every chance to pull away. Instead, I lean into him, my fingers finding purchase in the soft fabric of his dress shirt. He makes a sound low in his throat, and suddenly the kiss changes. Deepens. His hand slides into my hair, careful not to disturb the curls I spent an hour perfecting, while the other splays across my lower back, drawing me flush against him. He tastes like wedding cake and possibility, and I can feel his heart racing where my palm rests against his chest. The cool mountain air wraps around us, carrying the scent of pine and his cologne. It's the achingly familiar mix of cedar and smoke that I've always associated with him. But there's nothing familiar about the way he's kissing me, like he's trying to memorize every moment. Like he's wanted this as long as I have. My fingers trail up to the nape of his neck, and he shivers, pulling me even closer until I'm not sure where I end and he begins. When we finally break apart, he looks stunned, like he can't quite believe what just happened. His thumb traces my cheekbone, and I lean into the touch without thinking. Ivy, he breathes, and my name has never sounded like that before. Don't. I press my fingers to his lips. Don't say this isn't real. Don't tell me it was just for show, or that we got carried away, or. He catches my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm that makes me shiver. I was going to say I've wanted to do that since you were 17 and determined to prove you could outclimb me. You have not. But my heart is racing with possibility. You were wearing that ridiculous purple bandana. His other hand is still on my waist, thumb tracing circles that make it hard to think. And you kept stopping to name every wildflower we passed, just to prove you'd been studying those guides. Heat floods my cheeks. You remembered that? I remember everything about you. He rests his forehead against mine. That's the problem. Why is it a problem? Because this? He gestures between us. This isn't pretend anymore. Maybe it never was. And there it is. The truth we'd been dancing around all weekend. All our lives, maybe. So what do we do now? I manage. Instead of answering, he kisses me again. Slower this time, deeper, like he's trying to tell me something without words. My hands slide up his chest to loop around his neck, and he makes a sound that sends heat straight through me. When we break apart this time, we're both breathing hard. Music from the reception drifts out, reminding me that we're not alone in the world, that there are consequences and complications and 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea.
Chapter 6. Maddox. The problem with kissing Ivy Callahan is that I can't stop thinking about it. 3 days after the wedding, and I still feel her fingers in my hair, still taste her lip gloss, still hear that soft sound she made when I pulled her closer. My phone buzzes for the 10th time today. Liam's name flashes on the screen. We need to talk about what happened. I silence the phone, tossing it in my locker. That's the other problem. Because somewhere between pretending to date Ivy and actually kissing her, I managed to forget one very important detail. She's my best friend's sister. The same best friend who trusted me to keep this fake dating thing professional. Pulling another double? Jones asks as I check the equipment for the 3rd time today. Someone has to. Right. He leans against the truck. And this has nothing to do with avoiding a certain someone from Mountain Laurel Lodge? I focus on inspecting a connection I know is fine. I'm not avoiding anyone. So you just happened to switch shifts the day Ivy brought those cinnamon rolls by? My hand's still on the equipment. She was here? Yesterday morning. Brought coffee too. That fancy hazelnut thing you pretend not to like. He watches my reaction carefully. Seemed surprised you weren't around. I had things to do. Must be some important things. He pushes off the truck. She texted to check on you. Twice. I know. I've read both messages at least 20 times. Hey stranger. Miss your face at the coffee loft. And then, hours later, everything okay? You're not usually this quiet. I haven't responded to either. Because what am I supposed to say? Sorry, I kissed you like my life depended on it and then disappeared? Sorry, I can't stop thinking about doing it again? Sorry, I'm pretty sure I'm in love with you and have been since we were teenagers? You're an idiot, Jones says, breaking into my thoughts. Didn't ask for your opinion. No, but you're getting it anyway. He crosses his arms. She likes you. That's obvious to anyone watching you two together. And you're hiding at the station because what? You're scared? I'm not. The alarm cuts me off, and for once I'm grateful for the interruption. We gear up quickly, heading out to what turns out to be a minor kitchen fire. By the time we finish, it's nearly evening, and the town square is filling up for the summer concert series. Which is exactly where Ivy finds me. So you are alive. Her voice carries across the parking lot where I'm stowing gear in the truck. I was starting to wonder. I turn slowly, trying to ignore how good she looks in her simple sundress and boots. Been busy. Busy or hiding? She steps closer, arms crossed. The same way she used to stand when we were kids and she caught me and Liam planning something without her. Because it feels a lot like hiding. Ivy. You kissed me. The words hang in the air between us. And now you're acting like it never happened. It was part of the plan, I lie, the words tasting like ash. Making it look real for everyone at the wedding. She goes completely still. For a moment, I see the hurt flash across her face before she masks it. Got it. Ivy, wait. No, I get it. Her voice is too calm. It was for show. Message received. She turns to walk away, and everything in me screams to stop her. To tell her the truth. To admit that kissing her felt like coming home, that I've wanted her for so long I don't remember what it's like not to want her. Instead, I watch her go. Because that's what I do, isn't it? I watch Ivy Callahan walk away, telling myself it's for the best. Telling myself that keeping my distance protects everyone. Her, Liam, our families, our history. There you are. I look up to find Liam leaning against the truck, casual as ever. Like he hasn't been trying to reach me all day. Like his sister didn't just walk away from me looking like I'd slapped her. Kinda busy here, I manage. Yeah, Jones mentioned you've been busy a lot lately. He uses air quotes, watching me carefully. So, it's over now? The question hangs between us. I should say yes immediately. Should agree that the fake dating charade served its purpose and now we can all move on. Instead, I hesitate too long. Yeah, I finally mutter, but the word feels like a lie. Tastes like one too. Liam laughs slightly. Figured. Always knew it was just for the wedding. He claps me on the shoulder, missing the way I flinch. Thanks for being cool about the whole thing. I know Ivy can be. Can be what? The words come out sharper than intended. He blinks, surprised by my tone. Intense? You know how she gets when she commits to something. Commits to something. Like helping me fool my family. Like dancing with me under the stars. Like kissing me back like she meant it. Look, I should. It's fine, Liam cuts me off. We can all go back to normal now. Maybe grab a beer this weekend? Like old times? Old times. Before I knew what Ivy's laugh felt like against my lips. Before I held her in my arms and finally admitted to myself what I've known for years. She was never a fake date. The wedding might be over, but this feeling, this ache in my chest when I think about her, this need to be near her, this certainty that I just monumentally screwed up, that's not going anywhere. Mad? Liam's voice breaks through my thoughts. You good? I'm such an idiot. I run a hand over my face, reality crashing down hard. What? Nothing. I straighten up, unable to look at him. Just realized I forgot something important. Yeah? He's using that tone he gets when he thinks he's missing something obvious. What's that? That I'm in love with your sister. That I probably have been since we were kids. That I just told her it meant nothing when it meant everything. Doesn't matter now. I closed the equipment compartment with more force than necessary. I screwed it up anyway. Mad. I need to go. I grab my keys, suddenly unable to stand still. Rain check on that beer? I don't wait for his answer, just head for my truck. Behind me, I hear him call something about checking the schedule, but I'm already gone. Because for the first time in my life, I have no idea how to fix this. No protocol to follow, no training to fall back on. Just the sinking feeling that I let the best thing that's ever happened to me walk away because I was too scared to admit what it really meant. And the worst part? The absolutely gut-wrenching part? I'm pretty sure Ivy knew exactly what it meant. She was just waiting for me to be brave enough to admit it. I slam my truck door, grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. Somewhere in town, Ivy's probably telling herself this is exactly what she expected. That I'm just her brother's best friend who got carried away at a wedding. That it meant nothing. When really, it meant everything. And I have no idea how to tell her that now.
Chapter 7. Ivy. The coffee loft's morning rush ebbs around me, but I barely notice. I've been staring at the same event proposal for Mountain Laurel Lodge for 20 minutes, the words blurring together while my untouched hazelnut macchiato grows cold. I ordered it without thinking, and now I can't bring myself to taste it. Did you hear about the fire department fundraiser? Mary asks Sarah as they set up the day's pastry display. Apparently Maddox. I grip my pen tighter, focusing harder on the paper in front of me. If I concentrate enough on room layouts and catering numbers, maybe I won't think about how his name still makes my stomach flip. Maybe I won't remember how he tasted like wedding cake impossibility, or how his hands felt in my hair, or how easily he dismissed it all as part of the show. The worst part is how everything reminds me of him. The way the morning sun hits the coffee shop's windows, just like it did that day we met here for our practice date. The leather booth where he admitted to noticing how I take my coffee. Even the wishing wall, where someone's written "Find true love" in flowing script that makes my chest ache. Ivy? Annie appears at my table with a fresh coffee. You've been stirring that drink for 5 minutes. I'm thinking. I force a smile. Lots of events coming up at the lodge. She gives me a look that says she's not buying it, but thankfully doesn't push. That's the thing about small towns. Everyone knows everything, but sometimes they're kind enough to pretend they don't. Like they don't see the way I freeze every time a fire truck passes. Like they don't notice I've changed my morning coffee run to avoid his usual schedule. Mrs. Peterson's book club whispers at their usual table, and I catch fragments of their conversation. Something about the wedding, about how sweet Maddox and I looked together, about what a shame it is that. I flip my event proposal over with more force than necessary. That's the worst part, really. Everyone being so normal when nothing feels normal anymore. The sun still rises, people still laugh, and Maddox. Well, Maddox is probably fine. Probably hasn't spent the last few days replaying every moment, analyzing every touch, wondering if any of it was real or if I just saw what I wanted to see. Probably isn't sitting at the station right now, thinking about how perfectly we fit together when we danced, or how right it felt to kiss me under the stars. I haven't seen him since that night in the town square. Haven't needed to. He's made it clear he's avoiding the lodge, and I've made sure to stay away from the firehouse. What's the point in seeing him when I already know how this ends? More coffee? Annie asks, but I shake my head. I should probably head back to the lodge. I start gathering my papers, needing to escape before someone else mentions his name or asks about the wedding or gives me that pitying look that says they know exactly what happened. The bell above the door chimes, and I don't look up. Don't need to see if it's him, because it won't be. He hasn't come in since. The coffee shop goes suddenly, completely silent. It's the kind of silence that has weight. The kind that makes your skin prickle and your heart race before you even know why. Mrs. Peterson's book club stops mid-whisper. Sarah freezes with a coffee pot halfway to a customer's cup. Even little Tommy Marshall, who's been begging his mom for a cookie for the last 10 minutes, goes quiet. My heart stutters as I slowly lift my gaze. And there he is, filling the doorway like he always has, but something's different. His hair's disheveled like he's been running his hands through it, his uniform shirt is wrinkled like he slept in it, and he's looking at me like he's finally figured something out. Like maybe I wasn't the only one pretending. Like maybe, just maybe, this isn't how our story ends after all. I set my mug down carefully, willing my hands not to shake. The entire coffee loft seems to hold its breath as Maddox moves toward me, his steps slow and deliberate. Here to order coffee, firefighter? I'm proud of how steady my voice sounds. He shakes his head. I'm here for you. Irritation prickles under my skin. He doesn't get to just walk in here, looking all rumpled and earnest, and expect. I was an idiot. His voice is rough, like he's been rehearsing this. A coward. The room is so quiet I can hear the coffee machines humming. Mrs. Smith's knitting needles have gone still. Even Annie has stopped wiping down the counter. I spent years pretending I didn't want you because I was scared of what it would mean if I admitted the truth. He takes another step closer. The truth is, it was never fake. Not for me. My heart stumbles, but I keep my expression neutral. I love you, Ivy. The words hang in the air between us, and suddenly I can't breathe. And if you'll have me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I'm not going anywhere. I cross my arms, tapping my foot despite the way my pulse is racing. And what if I don't want grand speeches in front of the entire town? His mouth quirks up at one corner. It's the same half-smile that's been making my stomach flip since I was 16. Then I'll tell you in private. Every single day. Oh, just kiss him already. Mrs. Peterson calls. I sigh dramatically, but I can't keep the grin off my face. You're lucky you're cute, firefighter. Then I grab his collar and pull him down to me, pressing my lips to his. He makes a surprised sound before his arms wrap around my waist, lifting me slightly as he kisses me back. This isn't like our kiss at the wedding, soft and uncertain. This is sure, steady, real. This is Maddox pouring everything he couldn't say into the way he holds me, the way he breathes my name against my lips, the way his hands tremble slightly where they rest on my back. The coffee loft erupts in cheers and whistles. I'm pretty sure I hear Mrs. Peterson sniffling. But all I can focus on is the way Maddox is looking at me when we break apart. He stares at me like I'm everything he's ever wanted, like he can't believe he gets to have this, like maybe he's been in love with me as long as I've been in love with him. So, he murmurs, pressing his forehead to mine. Does this mean you forgive me? I pretend to think about it. That depends. Are you going to keep running away every time things get real? Never again. He tucks a strand of hair behind my ear. I'm done running from this. From us. Good. I kiss him again, quick and soft. Because I love you too. Epilogue. Ivy. Elk Ridge, 6 months later. The autumn air carries the scent of Declan's braised short ribs across the lodge's wraparound porch. He's been perfecting the recipe for months, the meat so tender it falls off the bone, swimming in a rich wine sauce that even the pickiest food critics rave about. Golden hour bathes everything in warm light, making the changing leaves look like they're on fire. It's the kind of evening that reminds me why I never want to live anywhere but here. Pass the carrots? Connor calls from his end of the long table. Before Liam hoards them all. I earned these, Liam protests around a mouthful, but he's grinning as he hands over the bowl. Had back-to-back check-ins all afternoon. A likely story, Mom says, eyes twinkling. Though I have to admit, Declan, you've outdone yourself tonight. It's nothing. But my brother preens under the praise, even as he fusses with the arrangement of roasted vegetables. Something I've been experimenting with. Nothing? Maddox raises an eyebrow, though I notice he's barely touched his plate. Is that why you had me taste test 6 different versions last month? Quality control is important, Declan says with professional dignity, but he's fighting a smile. Beside me, Maddox's knee bounces slightly under the table, his hand warm on my thigh. I study him out of the corner of my eye, taking in the slight tension in his shoulders, the way he keeps checking his pocket when he thinks no one's looking. He's been off all evening, quieter than usual, his attention drifting to me more often than normal. Which is saying something. Remember when Maddox used to try to maintain professional distance at these dinners? Jameson grins, reaching for another piece of bread to soak up the sauce. Now look at him. He practically runs the place. He's always been family, Mom says softly. Something in her tone makes me wonder just how much she knows about what's coming. Speaking of family dynamics, Jameson continues, his attention shifting. Rowan, planning to join the land of the living anytime tonight? My youngest brother startles slightly, pushing his food around his plate. He's been even quieter than usual lately, more withdrawn, since Sarah mentioned running into his ex at the grocery store last week. Just tired, he mumbles. You're always tired, Jameson teases gently. When was the last time you actually joined us for drinks at the tap? Leave your brother be, Mom says mildly, though I catch the concern in her eyes. She's been worried about him, we all have, but pushing Rowan never ends well. The grounds keep me busy, Rowan says with forced dignity, clearly done with this line of conversation. Ivy, would you mind taking a walk with me? Maddox asks, his voice a bit rough. The sunset from Eagle Point should be perfect right about now. Something in his tone makes my heart skip. Mom's smile grows softer as she waves us off. Go on. We'll handle the cleanup. I can help, I start, but Liam cuts me off. For once in your life, sister, let someone else handle the dishes. As Maddox helps me up from my chair, I catch the knowing looks passing between my brothers, the way Mom squeezes Maddox's arm as we pass. Even Rowan's expression has softened slightly. My heart beats 1,000,000 miles a minute as he heads me off the porch and through the lodge's grounds. The trail to Eagle Point winds through a grove of sugar maples, their leaves painted in sunset colors. Our footsteps crunch on fallen leaves, and Maddox's hand is warm in mine, his grip just a little tighter than usual. You're quiet tonight, I say softly, bumping his shoulder. He manages a smile, but there's something intense in his eyes that makes my heart flutter. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. Learned it from you. The path curves upward, and soon we emerge onto the overlook. The view never fails to take my breath away. Rolling mountains stretch into forever, painted in golds and purples by the setting sun. Below, the valley spreads out like a patchwork quilt of autumn colors. Maddox leads me to the wooden railing, but instead of looking at the view, he turns to face me. His hands frame my face with a gentleness that makes my chest ache. I need to tell you something. His voice is rough, intimate. Something I should have said a long time ago. My heart starts to race as he continues, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. I've loved you since before I knew what love was. Back when I thought being Liam's best friend meant I couldn't want his sister. Back when I convinced myself that keeping my distance was the right thing to do. He takes a shaky breath. I was wrong. So wrong. Mad. Let me finish. He presses his forehead to mine. Because loving you isn't just about wanting you. It's about who I am when I'm with you. How you make me brave enough to be real, to be honest, to be me. Tears blur my vision as he steps back, reaching into his pocket. The world seems to slow as he drops to one knee, holding up a small velvet box. Ivy Callahan. His voice breaks slightly on my name. Will you marry me? The ring catches the last rays of sunlight. The vintage-style setting looks like something I would have picked myself. But I barely see it through my tears that spring to my eyes when I look into his beautiful face. Maddox looks at me like I'm his entire world. Yes, I breathe. Then louder, yes, yes, absolutely yes. His hand shakes slightly as he slides the ring onto my finger. Then he's standing, pulling me into his arms, and everything else fades away as his mouth finds mine. The kiss tastes like joy and promise and forever. His hands tangle in my hair as mine grip his shirt, pulling him closer. I can feel his heart racing against my chest, matching the rhythm of my own. When he deepens the kiss, I taste the lingering sweetness of Declan's wine sauce, mixed with something uniquely Maddox. Coffee and mint and home. We break apart only when breathing becomes necessary, but he keeps me close, pressing soft kisses to my temple, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. I love you, I whisper against his lips. Even when you were taking your sweet time seeing what's right in front of you. He laughs, the sound pure and happy. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. The sun has nearly set by the time we make our way back to the lodge. I can't stop looking at the ring on my finger, the way it catches the last golden light. As we approach the porch, I spot Liam leaning against one of the pillars, clearly waiting for us. Maddox tenses slightly beside me, but my big brother just smirks, looking entirely unsurprised. About time, he says, clapping Maddox on the shoulder. Though I gotta say, you lasted longer than I thought you would. Connor owes me $20. You knew? I demand. Please. Liam rolls his eyes. He asked for my blessing 2 months ago. Said he wanted to do things right. Before I can process that, the door bursts open and the rest of the family spills out. Mom's crying happy tears, Declan's already talking about the menu for our engagement party, and Jameson's making inappropriate jokes about the wedding night. Only Rowan hangs back, watching from the doorway with his usual unreadable expression. He mutters something that sounds suspiciously like too much romance in this family before disappearing inside. Maddox leans down to whisper in my ear, $10 says your brother's next. I glance toward where Rowan vanished, then back at my fiancé, amusement bubbling up. You really think someone's going to crack that shell? Trust me. Maddox's eyes dance with mischief. Some things are just meant to be. And as he pulls me in for another kiss, ignoring Jameson's wolf whistle and Mom's happy sigh, I know exactly what he means. Because some love stories? They're written in the stars long before we realize they've begun. The end. This has been The Spark Between Us. Written by Susanne Ash. Copyright 2025 by Susanne Ash. Production copyright 2025 by Susanne Ash. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you want me to put more of my books on YouTube. Visit my website at www.susanneash.com for more of my books or find me on Amazon.